Yes, I'd like to talk about research performance and the link to, for BRICS countries, and the link to the rankings that we have produced. And I'm looking specifically at the World University Rankings. A short reminder of what the rankings are and where research performance or research data like bibliometrics are included is shown over here. As I mentioned before, it is the World University Rankings that I will be focusing on today. And in there is citations, so the field-weighted citation index of the content that is produced by a university. It counts for 30%. There is the research productivity as part of research in general. That's 6% part of the rankings. And then there is the institutional collaboration, 2.5%. And all of these are based on bibliometric data that we capture in the Scopus database. So I'll be focusing on these three metrics, but I do think it's very important, specifically when talking about research performance in general. These are just three metrics that can measure research performance. But in order to be excellent in research, it doesn't really mean that all of these three metrics should be addressed. You can be excellent in very many different ways. And maybe the way that you are excellent in research is not the one that is measured here with these three metrics. So that is, I think, a caveat of looking at metrics, measuring research performance, because it's such a broad topic. So it was the output, the number of items, it was the international collaboration, and it is the citations that are taken into account for rankings for research performance. And those three dimensions I'd like to go over for the BRICS countries. So here you can see the scholarly output, and I'm looking here at article review and conference papers for these 5 countries, year over year from 2006 to 2015. And there you can see that by far China is the largest producer of scientific content for these 5 countries. And actually when you look at a global scale, it is the second after the US. So that's almost 450,000 items per year that is being produced in one single country. But also when you look at the other countries, you can see that from 2006 to 2015, there is growth everywhere. Usually because of there is new investments being made in research performance. And the first thing what you can see there is more output. The second dimension was international collaboration. And here you can see again for the BRICS countries from 2006 to 2015, the level or the percentage of international collaboration of the research output. And international collaboration here is measured with articles that have more than one country affiliation mentioned on the article. Here you can see actually that South Africa is the highest performing one, with more than 45% international collaboration in 2015. You can also see that for South Africa it's growing, same for China and for Brazil, and for Russia and India it's either stable or decreasing slightly. International collaboration is very important, not only because it's one of the measures of research performance, but also what we see is that increased international collaboration leads to increased level of citations and therefore higher citation counts and a higher field-weighted citation impact. And that I'd like to show you with an example from China. China overall has a field-weighted citation impact of 0.87, which means that on compared to the world output, it is 87% of what you would expect on an average of the world. However, when Chinese authors are collaborating with international authors, that field-weighted citation impact is increasing. And here I'll show you the combined field-weighted citation impact for collaboration between the BRICS countries and the US. On the right-hand side, you can see the number of co-authored publications. You can see the country there, and you can also see the field-weighted citation impact of the country itself. And in orange, you can see the field-weighted citation impact of the collaboration. And in all of these cases, the collaboration field-weighted citation impact is higher than the one of China, and also higher than the one of the individual country itself. You can see the largest increase with collaboration with South Africa, where the Chinese field-weighted citation impact increases from 0.87 to 3.81. So it is 381% of what you would expect as the world average. US is indicated here in this slide because the US is the largest collaborator with China, with more than 100,000 items collaborating with Chinese authors. That is research performance, but I would like to link this to actually the rankings and the World University Rankings from THE. So this is an overview of the World University, of the number of institutes from the different countries in the World University rankings from 2015 to 2017. Please take into account that the number of institutes being ranked over these years is also growing, so therefore also the absolute number of the institutions from these different countries is growing. Also, please take into account that 2015, the World University rankings were then based on the Thomson Reuters bibliometric data. From 2016 and 2017, the bibliometric data is the Elsevier bibliometric data. But overall, you can see all of these countries have increasingly more institutions in the rankings available. And when you look at the top 500 rankings, there you can see that at least there is a stable number of institutes being ranked, but specifically for Russia, you can see that from 2015, where there were 2 institutions ranked in the top 500, it has increased to 8 institutions in 3 years' time in 2017. China is the only country of these 5 countries that has 2 institutions in the top 100 from the THE rankings. So this is obviously something that governments would like to increase. The 5-100 program from Russia is an example where there is a strategy to increase the number of institutions that are being ranked in prestigious rankings such as the THE. I'd like to go over 2 examples of government initiatives to increase the research performance, and by doing that, hopefully also increase the ranking positions of the countries. The first example I'd like to use is Brazil. In Brazil, in general, there are many public universities that have ample freedom to determine their own strategies. So it's not so much determined by the government itself, but the universities itself have freedom to come to certain strategies to improve research performance. But what you see is that often encouraging internationalization and fostering interdisciplinarity are 2 items that are high on the agenda for increasing research performance at institutions in Brazil. And also, maybe it's a result of that, or maybe it is because of that. Also on the government level, there is an initiative called Science Without Borders, which is about internationalization of the research output in Brazil. There are 3 goals in the program, which looks at Brazilian researchers going abroad. It is about foreign researchers bringing into Brazil, and it's about fostering international collaboration in general. I have to say, though, that the program is too early to see any results from that, and also at the moment, due to budget freeze, it is on a hold. But I think it is a good example of what are the things that different governments are looking at in order to increase research performance in the country. The second example I'd like to mention is the 5-100 program from Russia. Probably you all are aware of this program. It has been discussed earlier today. But in short, what it is about having at least 5 universities in the top 100 reputable rankings around the world, but also have at least 15% international students in each university and 10% international faculty members. So it's really about improving the international position of institutions in Russia. But I think the interesting part of this, and I also think the clever part of this program, is that it's not only looking at the output in Russia itself, but it is comparing Russian institutions with other nations. So there are other groups around the world that have been very successful in increasing their rankings in the World University rankings. For example, there is in Canada a group called U15, or there's the C9 League in China. And the 5-100 program tries to compare their output from their institutions to the institutions that have done well in the rankings, and also to make sure that whatever you do is in relation to your competitors. Because you can have a very high increase of the number of articles that you produce per year, but if other institutions have an even higher increase, then still it would not help you to have a better research performance on a global level. So it's very important to compare yourself to international peers. There are some preliminary results from the 5-100 program. The first result is that, well, in total there's 21 universities part of this program in Russia. And when you look at the output, about 30% of the total output from Russia is actually coming from these 21 universities. The output growth also is at a good level, and it is comparable to their international peers. However, the 21 universities are still lagging behind on the citation level. So they are producing more content, but the citations are still lagging behind their competitor universities. And as a preliminary conclusion of the 5-100 program, the suggestions are to focus on journal selection. So for universities to really have a strategy in place on which journals to publish in, because that may have impact on how often the papers can be made visible, are available, accessible, and also be cited. But also international collaboration is something, the opportunities to foster these and to make sure that these are found. And also the developments of the, understanding developments of the competitor countries to make sure that you're not only looking at your own performance, but looking it into context of the world research output. Also from those preliminary results, you can see this impact and volume of collaboration. So you can see different types of collaboration. Single author, well, that speaks for itself, I would say. Two seat, which is one author with multiple institutions. Institutional, so that is within one institution that there's collaboration. National collaboration, so that is in this case within Russia. Double, so that is Russia with one extra country or one other country. Then there is collaboration between 5 countries and more than 5 countries. And the red dots give you the field-weighted citation impact of that output with that collaboration type. And there you can clearly see the more international collaboration, the higher the field-weighted citation impact, and therefore the higher citation score and the impact that you make on the world level. So based on these 2 examples, I'd like to highlight 3 topics for the remainder of this presentation that I'd like to focus on, that are about research performance and that can have impact on the rankings. The first one is interdisciplinary research. That was a topic that was mentioned by the Brazilian universities. The second one is collaboration, and the third one is mobility of researchers, which also came back with the Brazilians, but also came back with the Russian 5-100 program. So first, interdisciplinary research. But maybe to start off with, I need to make an analogy to understand really what we mean by interdisciplinary research. And I use the analogy with fruit. So topical research could be compared with like an apple. It's one piece of fruit. Multidisciplinary research could be a basket of fruits, and when you compare that to science, it could be, for example, the journal Science that has different articles about one specific topic, but in total it is a multidisciplinary journal. And then there's fruit salad, and there you're really mixing up the different topics. So this would be a research paper that crosses boundaries of different disciplines. So that's also something that we try to measure with the data that we have, the bibliometric data that we have at Elsevier. And one way of doing that is looking at how far the references are in an article. So what we can do is, by doing co-citation analysis of the references of an article, we can see how far are they related. Are they about the same topic? Are they about different topics? And you can do that with all the articles that you have in the database, and then you come to a certain interdisciplinary score. And what we have done is we have made a threshold of the top 10%, and the articles that have top 10% of interdisciplinarity score are considered to be interdisciplinary research. So using that methodology, we have been looking at research output from different countries. This is from a report done with HAFKI, the Research Council in the UK, where they compared the output from the UK with different comparator countries. In there are 2 countries from BRICS, Brazil and China, and you can see that actually both China and Brazil are of the highest countries with the most interdisciplinary research out there. So for China, it's about 12% of papers are considered to be interdisciplinary, and for Brazil, it is about 11% that is considered to be interdisciplinary. So I think that is a very good outcome and something that encourages the research performance of those countries. But as I said before, maybe research performance itself may not be measured by just one metric. So when we correspond this to field-weighted citation impact, you can actually see that interdisciplinary papers do get cited less than non-interdisciplinary papers. So in this slide, you can see the field-weighted citation impact of publications, of all publications, and the field-weighted citation impact of publications that are considered interdisciplinary. Everything below the orange line, for those cases, the field-weighted citation impact for interdisciplinary research is lower than for the general research. And you can see that for all of the countries, it is the case that interdisciplinary research results in lower citation counts than the general research outcome. As said, that may not be a bad outcome because it still encourages improvement in research performance, but it is the one metric that you're looking at here, the field-weighted citation impact, that probably doesn't capture the real outcome of research performance in interdisciplinary research. So even if this would not increase your ranking position probably in the World University rankings, I still do think it is a very wise thing when you look at research performance also to look at interdisciplinarity. And maybe later on, when the topic becomes from interdisciplinary more monodisciplinary, it gets more visible, it gets more cited, and therefore also the field-weighted citation impact will increase. The second topic is international collaboration, and collaboration has been mentioned today many times before. And also reasons for collaboration, I think, have been mentioned. But on this slide, I would like to summarize it on 3 different reasons why it is good in general to do collaboration. First of all, to address complex problems. Some problems are just too complex to solve by just one person or one group. So you need multiple groups in order to address those complex problems. Also, maybe there may be boundaries. It could be a regional boundary. It could be that it is an institute that is down the road from you, but still it is a boundary that you have to cross in order to share knowledge that can help you to address those problems again. And finally, I think also a very important one, funding and talent and equipment. If you are collaborating, you can also share those resources and therefore do more probably with your research with the limited funding that you may have, and share that amongst your collaborators. So those may be reasons for collaboration. I already showed you information on China, where China was collaborating with different countries and the field-weighted citation impact increases. Now I'd like to give you the example of South Africa and which of the countries have which impact on the field-weighted citation increase. So in this graph, you can see the field-weighted citation impact of South Africa on the horizontal axis and the field-weighted citation impact of the collaborating country on the vertical axis. There's a line of 1.0, which is the average of that particular country. So everything that is from the right, from here, has a higher field-weighted citation impact than the field-weighted citation impact of South Africa itself. And everything above this line results in a higher field-weighted citation impact for the collaborating country. So luckily here you can see that all of the 25 top collaborators for South Africa result in a positive benefit for both South Africa and the collaborating country. But be careful over here with Nigeria. Here it is still at the good side of the 1.0 line, but if that moves towards the other side of the 1.0, it could be it's still beneficial for Nigeria, but that collaboration may not be beneficial anymore for South Africa. So with that, you can also see which are the collaborating countries for South Africa that benefit the most from collaboration and has the highest field-weighted citation increase. 2 of those countries are BRIC countries, so it's Russia and Brazil that have the highest field-weighted citation increase, but also Chile and Japan are in that part of the graph. The third topic I'd like to address is researcher mobility. And this came up a few times, for example, with the Brazilian Science Without Borders program, where there is a strategy in order to make researchers more mobile, to encourage that researchers from your country are going abroad, but also that researchers that are international are coming to your country. And mobility, again, can be measured somehow. And this is a schematic representation of how mobility can be seen and can be measured. So we are looking at the mobility for the particular country here in blue. And there you can see that there's outflow from researchers in this country going outside of the country. But there may also be researchers that are from outside of the country that are in your country and going home. And then on the other side, you can see the inflow of researchers in your country coming from outside of the country, or your nationals that are going abroad and going back to your country again. So everything is in blue is not migratory. Everything else are researchers that are migrating and are mobile. Again, we looked at migratory share of the countries and to the international collaboration. And there you can see there's a high correlation between the two. Here again it is the UK, which is compared with 7 different other countries. And there you can see that they're all along this line, that the more researchers that are migrating, the more international collaboration share is happening. And as we've seen before, the more international collaboration, also the more field-weighted citation impact. In this case, China is the one that has the lowest migratory share, and by that also the lowest international collaboration, and as an effect also the lowest field-weighted citation impact. So international collaboration is fostered by researcher mobility, but also the other way around. So it's really something that works together and therefore is something that has a beneficial effect on research performance, but also on the rankings that these institutions may have in the World University Rankings. So I've been talking about citations, the citation score, the field-weighted citation impact a lot. And it is, I think, a very important and relevant metric to look at the impact that one can have on the research community. But I think it's important to realize that there's multiple ways of being excellent. There's multiple ways of having an impact on the research community. So it's not only citations that you may want to look at. It could also be downloads. For example, on the publisher platform, how many times have researchers actually downloaded that article from the publisher with the intention probably to use it, to read it, or to do whatever with it. But also to read research. And with that, for example, we look at the social research platform Mendeley, where people store the articles in their own library with the intention to read it. So like with the field-weighted citation impact, you can also measure a field-weighted download impact or a field-weighted read impact. This is some preliminary results for, from a report that we're doing for the Business Innovation and Skills Department in the UK. They can compare themselves to other countries. These 4 BRIC countries are also included in that: Brazil, Russia, China, and India. And here you can see the differences that you may have with the field-weighted citation impact, the field-weighted downloaded impact, and the field-weighted read impact. Green is the citations, red is the read, so that's Mendeley, and blue is downloaded. So in this case, we're using the Elsevier full-text platform ScienceDirect. And as mentioned before, there's multiple ways of being excellent, and I think there are some good examples over here. So for example, India, when you look at humanities, there you can see that their field-weighted download impact, so the times that researchers have downloaded content coming from India, is much higher relatively than the world, because this is 1, but also much higher relatively than the reads or the citations. On the other hand, when you look at Russia over here in humanities, business, social science, and engineering, there you can see that the citations are relatively higher than the downloads and the reads, and also relatively higher than the world average of 1. And Brazil has a good example in environmental sciences, where the read, the field-weighted read index, so the times that people have stored their article in the library in Mendeley, is higher relatively than the citations or the downloads and then the world average. So these are just examples of different ways as looking at research performance than only citations. And the last topic I would like to mention is the importance of measurements. All of the examples that I've shown you are based on the data that we have at Elsevier available, and it gives you insights in how a certain country or a certain institution is performing. And that is important also for what was mentioned in the 5-100 program, for example, that it is not only important to understand how you're doing yourself, but it's also important to understand how you are doing compared to others. And two examples of that is this example from on a country level. This is a report that we have done earlier this year for DST, the Department of Science and Technology in India, where they were looking at their own performance and see how that compares to others and how it compares over years. So on the right-hand side, you can see the different dimensions that have been looked at. For example, in international collaboration, for example, the citations, top-cited articles, patent citations, collaboration, things like that. And for all of these dimensions, you can see that changing from 2009 to 2013, this is increasing. So there is more output, there's more international collaboration, more citations being produced by Indian researchers. On the left-hand side, you can see, go back. You can see the topic that we have been talking about a lot before already, the international collaboration, where in the middle you can see India. The colors red, the more red it is, the lower the field-weighted citation impact is. The more green the color, the higher the field-weighted citation impact. And the lines between the different countries indicate the field-weighted citation increase fold. So the more green the line is, the higher increase of the field-weighted citation impact is observed. So to give an example here, India collaborating with Mexico over here, both the field-weighted citation impact of Mexico and India are red, but the collaboration field-weighted citation impact is very high, it is dark green. So this is a way of measurement. It is a way to look at differences over years and how India compares to other countries. And with this, you have better insight of how this particular country is doing. The same can be done on an institutional level. And here I show you the same graph as I just have shown you for South Africa, where on a country level you can see who are the collaborating partners that are most beneficial for increasing your field-weighted citation impact that you are collaborating with. This is an example with fake data for an institution, and there also looking at the data you can see which collaborations result in increase of field-weighted citation impact of your university and the collaborating university, which is beneficial for you but not for the collaborating partners, which is beneficial for the collaborating partners but not for you, and which collaboration is not beneficial for either of you. So that's the quadrant that you would like to avoid. With that, I'd like to make three conclusions of this presentation. The first of all, the BRICS countries are actually performing quite well when you look at the output, when you look at the international collaboration, and when you look at the field-weighted citation impact. It is growing on almost all the dimensions, and therefore also the number of institutions from these countries in the rankings is increasing. Secondly, three topics that I've been discussing today that do have impact on research performance and therefore also have impact on the ranking positions of an institution are interdisciplinary research, collaboration, and mobility of researchers. And finally, I'd like to stress this one more time, systematic measurement is very important because only then you can understand how you are performing and how you are performing compared to others, other universities or other countries that you are competing with. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention.